Welcome to the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast, the show where aspiring and experienced...
Well, that was abrupt. Welcome back, everyone, to the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast. I am so excited for this show, which is the last show of this season. So I wanted to bring this particular content, which is super, super important. I am your host, Arlene Washburn, Matchmaker Mentor and advocate for ethical matchmaking. And today we're covering a very, very important topic that most matchmakers don't think about, right? We're talking about, well, first and foremost, let me make this clarification because I had a conversation earlier and I want to make sure that people understand that when we talk about matchmaking, we are speaking about offline professional matchmaking companies and practitioners and their teams. We're not discussing online dating platforms or apps or companies, they live by different rules, different risks, different responsibilities. So everything that we're going to discuss today is about the professional matchmaking realm. And today we're exploring how protecting client data is the foundation of trust. And my guest, who is a cybersecurity governance leader, Mark Bernard, he's helped organizations align with ISO 27001 and SOC 2 and to navigate privacy requirements like GDPR, PIPEDA, or PIPEDA, among others. And our lens is just about what's practical, what owners need to make decisions about, what employees need to be doing daily, and how to prevent costly mistakes. So whether it's a global corporation or a local matchmaking business, trust is the currency of connection, and cybersecurity is what protects it. So I am going to welcome my guest, Mark Bernard.
Hey, Arlene, nice to meet you and be here part of your podcast.
Thank you. I am so excited to have this discussion. It's a topic that, some people find a little bit dry or a little bit boring until they have a mishap that requires some cleaning up. So let's try to mitigate some risk today by the conversation that you and I are going to have.
That's perfect.
So for the owners, and the decisions that set risk level, we're going to jump right in and talk a little bit about what they need to be thinking about for their businesses, in terms of tools, policies, what can be tolerated, and how they need to navigate through this minefield of cybersecurity, because my understanding is that there's a cybersecurity breach like every 15 seconds or some crazy number like that.
Yeah, it's true. And there's going to be more coming because we're in an amazing time right now when we're seeing artificial intelligence start to pick up some speed. And there's people out there who are cloning voices, cloning images, and writing scripts for those images to do all kinds of nefarious stuff, including stealing people's identities. So, yeah, and then we're going to have, fully automated robots probably in the next 3 years or less, and then we have quantum encryption coming in the next 4 years. So there's a lot of massive disruptive technologies that are entering our worlds.
Yeah. And, oh my gosh, there's just so much to think about and so many directions we can go here. But the thing is that in the matchmaking realm, they are collecting highly sensitive data. And I think that people don't realize what's considered sensitive data, but for sure, the romance scam is in the billions. And so the data that matchmakers collect is what they're looking for. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I've been a privacy and security compliance officer in banking, also in the government. And so I know, like, by law, what is considered to be, personally identifiable information. That's what we call it, PII. Sure. The European, I guess, definition is even more rigid than the North American one, and the European one. So it's, um, anything that basically is, can identify you as an individual, it's basically private information unless you choose to disclose it. Now, there are some laws that say, well, if it's in the public realm, then it's not considered to be personal information. So that's kind of a debate that's
Mhm.
that probably won't be solved. But other things like birth dates and social security numbers or social insurance numbers, and certainly other things that can identify you, like shopping trends. If you get the button the visa out there and you're going shopping, well, somebody's collecting data and they know every store you've been to, right? And that data is collected by Equifax. So a few years ago, you remember they had a massive breach. It cost them $730 million to fix, but
Wow.
pocket change for them because they make like almost $1 billion a year on our information. So
It's just unbelievable. And, you just mentioned something that made me think, okay, let me kind of throw a few of the common practice that I would love to hear your take on. For example, a private Facebook group frequented by a bunch of matchmakers, and they are posting profiles of their clients. Is that something that is violating any kind of privacy laws where they're posting photos and descriptions and what the person's looking for, who they are, or their age, where they're located in the general vicinity, not full address? Sometimes first name, sometimes not. Uh, Definitely age occasionally. And it's considered private because it's a private group, but is it?
no. So I guess we should have started the conversation by saying I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice, right? So, but
Oh, for
but
sure.
but I work at the very top with the organization, with the CEO and the legal team and stuff. So I understand the conversation and the issues. And to your point, I think there's a couple things. So when you said that made me think. First of all, what does your agreement say with your customer? Does it say, because in the privacy law, what it says is the reason why you collect the information has to be succinct with the purpose that you use it for. So, for instance, if I collected personal information of people who are, looking around to see if they can find a better partner or a new partner or something, uh, you know, that information is probably being collected for just that purpose alone. But if all of a sudden they change that purpose and they say, okay, we're going to build a Facebook, forum or some other kind of online forum, um, then all of a sudden you change the purpose. And the secondary thing that happens there too is now you've gone from having one instance of that personal information on your server or in the cloud or on your hard drive to replicating that and creating another instance of it, which is not really by law not allowed unless you have permission from the owner. So you need to, so as a privacy officer, what I would do is I would make sure that our agreement is very clear and it's distinct with why we're collecting it and the purposes that we're going to use it for. And I think it's great that people have these creative ideas on how to, you know, get people connected and get them to talk and things like that. I think that's great. But you just have to make sure that your agreement defines that, what you're going to be doing with that information. And then make sure you collect the consent, because the consent is your get out of jail free card, right? If you
Right.
don't have that record, then you're in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I will say this, I mean, I'm a big advocate for the matchmaking world, and I know that there's a lot of workarounds to help their clients to achieve those relationship goals. And the purpose of those groups is really to collaborate with other practitioners. Are all
Oh,
practitioners created equal? No. And if you share something in a private group, does it stay in the group? Not always. I know
mhm.
people think that because it's a private group for professional matchmakers, sometimes other people are in there, coaches and technology people. But the thing is you have no idea what happens with that data. Somebody can take a photo and, or like a snapshot, you know what I mean, like capture it, outside of the group, because you can't forward what's in a group, but you can certainly make copies of it and
Mm.
then distribute it. And so now you're violating those privacy policies that you have, that whether it's in your contract or not.
Yeah. This is like this is like basic building block stuff that I would use as a privacy officer building a program. You have to have your policy straight, okay? And everybody that's involved that's touching that information has to be read into the policy, right? And you have to have evidence of that as well to protect yourself, right? So, if there was a breach and it was caused by somebody who you just hired and you hadn't put them through like orientation training and got them to sign on the employment agreement that they won't protect that information with their life, then you're exposed, right? So, and you don't want to be exposed, because we've seen what's happened to some companies that got exposed in this business, and they lost a lot of money, and also reputational damage is not easy to fix, right?
Absolutely. And what are your thoughts about texting that type of information or sending it via email, like a Gmail account?
Yeah, well, Gmail's not secure. As you know, there's a big breach going on right now. Gmail, there's like a couple million passwords that are out there on the dark web that people are buying. So yeah, and it kind of goes back to your comment about the Facebook as well. Like when you put your information on a platform, the way the privacy law works is wherever that data is sitting, and you have to know where it's sitting. Is it in China? Is it in, Brazil? Where is that data sitting? Because the laws of the land in that country apply. And if they have no law, guess what? Your data is free game. So you have to be aware of that, and you probably will be asked that if you ever had to go to court, right? Is where is your data? Who had access to it? Like who at Facebook can go in and look at that data? Is it encrypted while it's on the drive? Is it restricted? The same with these other channels, like if you set up a Google Meet or what have you. Even this conversation right now is happening on a platform somewhere, right? So where is that data going? We're not sure. Well, maybe you know, Arlene, but I don't know.
And it's funny because there's just, so I'll give you an example. Right now, we have a lot of people trying to go into the CRM space for professional matchmakers. However, we don't know if these platforms are operating in the way that they should with the proper protocols to be able to encrypt that data, whether it's at rest or in transportation. With GDPR, I don't know if they have to have servers in a specific location. I know people use AWS, which has different locations. And didn't they have a breach recently or some problem recently? I don't know.
With who?
AWS. I thought there was some,
Oh.
because I lost my Facebook account for like a few days and then it came back. And I think it was an AWS problem. But my point
Yeah.
is this. How does a matchmaker, because of course every matchmaker that I know that is ethical is really trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And when they have all these different platforms coming into the space and they have all these rich features that matchmakers enjoy, however, they have no idea if these platforms are compliant with data protection.
Yeah. You have to, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I'm just curious, how would they find that out?
Yeah, ask them. Right. So you should have a checklist. It's something that, I could give you, for instance, a checklist of questions to ask. There are some providers because we're only normal citizens, everyday people. We're not like, Elon Musk or any of those guys. So they're not going to pay much attention to us when we ask those questions. So we can ask and hope for the best. I mean, if the data is stored in the US or in Canada or in Europe, it's probably safe. But, some other countries like China, they have special laws. India has laws where you can't encrypt data, the same with China. So your data would not be protected there, right?
You cannot encrypt. Is that what you said?
Yeah, the government has a special law. They say if you work in my country, you cannot encrypt your data because they want to peek at it, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What a crazy world we're living in, because we're all addicted to technology and all of our
Yeah.
phones are listening, all these devices. I mean, I have an Alexa in every room. It's like,
Oh no, that can be used in court against you, right?
Well, tell me more because I'm just flabbergasted by, the stuff that we take for granted that we're using all the time, and yet who
Yeah.
knows what we're doing.
Yeah, I know it's hard, because in my job I have to be, have the pom-poms on and cheering on, the technology and the innovation because it's so important for all of us, right? It's to keep growing and learning and, evolving. That's really important. But at the same time, we also have to, just be aware that there are risks out there and that you can take some steps. It's not difficult to protect yourself. I think right now we have for the last probably 15 years, we've had a lot of what I would call software as a service apps. So these are apps that you can, get a registration for, and you can go on Amazon or you can go on, Google or whatever and use. You don't actually download the software to your computer. So that means that your data is stored on their system, wherever that is. And now we have artificial intelligence. And what artificial intelligence does is if you don't have a subscription with the AI, large language model service provider, then you actually don't have any protection at all because they use whatever data that you talk into ChatGPT or into Gemini or any of those. They use that data to train their LLM. So it gets absorbed into the mothership, right?
So, okay, this is so interesting. I'm glad I have subscription for everything because I'm a, tech junkie. But
Good.
I did not know that. That's really good to know because I want to share that with my students if any of them are listening, that maybe you should pay that $20 or whatever it is. It's so worth it in terms of the amount of output that you can get if you're using those systems properly.
Yeah.
But I also caution, and correct me if I'm wrong because you're the expert here, when often a matchmaker, let's say, might put in some information about their client to output a profile, something that's well written, etc. I always say don't put any identifiable information such as their photos or their name or address or date of birth because
Mm.
whether or not they're paying, I feel like don't put that kind of stuff in there. If you want a little bio output, that kind of stuff, you don't need to get personal that way because I'm always afraid of things listening or taking your data. Is that good advice or does it not matter?
No, that's great advice. Yeah, absolutely. And also, if you get to if you get large enough and you decide as the executive of this company that you want to create your own LLM, you can, certainly build an LLM and start training it with the data that you collect from all of the matchmakers and secure that LLM somewhere away from the mothership because they won't talk to each other. They'll be segregated. And that way you can put whatever you want in it. You just have to make sure that you encrypt it and protect it. That's all.
Interesting. Wow. So, what would you say to business owners? And often, what I see is the for my students, I go through the Love Pro Mastermind Academy. They're all interested in starting their own business, and so they start out. And when I got into the business, which was a very long time ago, I remember a lot of matchmakers that were happened to be female and had husbands in IT, and they were like, "Oh, my husband's creating a system for me to manage my data," and they would do that and create platforms. I personally, when I started, used the database from Microsoft, and I created my own thing because I used to know how to design those databases. Are those things protected? Is that the right thing to do, or should you be going to a CRM that has all the encryption necessary and doing it that way? What's your advice for these people to do something economical at the same time? And I think part of the reason why they create their own stuff is because paying subscriptions when you first start out and you're not making money can be costly.
Yeah. I think we're at a golden age in technology right now. And I think the opportunity to use a CRM and use artificial intelligence to make your business so much more personal, so much better, so much more effective. You can't ignore those as a business leader, right? You're going to jump on them, right? Um, can you get a CRM that you can, download? Uh, does it take away any of the value? I mean, you have to do a business case and, identify why you want to use that, I think, and have a conversation about it. But you could have your own CRM and have it completely protected with your own security. Uh, that would be the best way. But I mean, these larger companies, they're pretty reliable, but again, they're huge, right? And something else that you might not know, but the way the privacy law works is that if I built up a CRM with a bunch of clients in it, okay, and then I decide, okay, I'm getting out of the business, I'm going to cash out and go on vacation forever, right? Um, that when you sell that database, you sell everybody's personal information. It's not against the law. You're just doing a business transaction. That's the way the law looks at it, right? So the CRM data is part of that database. Everybody in that database is their personal information is now being sold to who? Chinese, Russians, you know, you don't know, right? So, yeah. So, yeah.
So the answer is if you can create your own database and put the proper security in place, do that. Or to your
Yeah.
point, I mean, I was just sitting at a conference yesterday in New York, and there was a technology tool that is so amazing in terms of follow up. I mean, these are business owners who have leads coming in, and they have to follow up and do a series of things and email nurture and all the stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so not taking advantage of those things is kind of like, you know, you
Yeah.
really miss out because the follow up is where most purchases happen.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's every business is the same. Like this part of the business is the same in every business. This is customer relationship management. It's about, building a pipeline and care and feeding of that pipeline because someday that pipeline is going to become a customer. Yeah, so you can't ignore those things, but you need to protect yourself somehow because you don't want to have a massive breach.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of like, is there a quick checklist we could possibly give the business owner about what they should do? Because I think of things like, for example, if I'm a business owner and I'm bringing in staff, I'm going to limit the amount of access that they have to data. They will be on a need to know basis because I don't want my client's data being seen by everyone. And I
Mhm.
think in some cases, if somebody has a matchmaking company and they bring in a new person, they might just let them have access to everything. And I'm very careful. I always think that way. So,
It's
what would
true.
be kind of like some list, some cyber hygiene, if you will, of things that you would tell an owner to keep in mind? Like, how often should they change their password? I mean, I just got something this morning about somebody in Tennessee was logging into my Instagram, and I went in like a psycho and just changed my password right away. But this stuff is constantly happening in today of all days.
You mean you didn't tell your AI to take care of that for you?
Well, I just hired 5 AI employees.
All right. Just
That
like Iron Man, right? Can you take care of that for me? You know, close that account down or lock it up. Yeah, yeah, no, we do have so we can provide like a checklist from a privacy perspective,
Mhm.
for sure. And then we could definitely provide some best practice when it comes to information protection, like, what kind of encryption should you use and stuff. Uh, yeah, access control. And one of the points you just mentioned actually is new employees. So in not in all companies, but in really secure companies, what they do is they don't let new employees near the Holy Grail until they've been working for them for 5 years, right?
Wow.
Yeah, because you never know. Somebody could be just coming to work for you to learn about your business so that they can start their own, right? And then collect the clients list and walk out the door and say, "See you, Arlene, thank you." So yeah, you have to be careful. So I think you need to set up a classification schema, something where you can say that these, maybe when you're going through the CRM process, you have, the pipeline, you have some people who are maybe just on the fringe, or you're just following up with them for the first time. But then you also have some regular customers, that you've taken care of and that have found their mate, and maybe you guys have conversations once in a while, and you help them out do some other things. Maybe they got kids or something, right? So yeah, I think you come up with some kind of classification schema and then a policy on, how many months do you wait, or how many years do you wait before you allow somebody to have access to the more sensitive information, right? So that's an internal thing that you could do. But yes, as far as checklists go, we can definitely provide those. Yeah.
And then changing passwords. How often should they be changing their password?
Well, so I come from the IBM world, so I think every 30 days. Some people wouldn't do that. Oh yeah, we have password lists too, so you can't like replicate your password across all your apps. Lots of people like to do that, right? The best thing to do is to get a password vault,
Mhm.
okay? One that's reliable, one that's made in the USA, okay, and not in China. and and use that to encrypt, and use the strongest password. When Google or Chrome or whoever says, do you want to use a strong password, say yes, okay, and encrypt it, because you can always reset it, because you should have multi-factor authentication on as well, so that if somebody tries to access your account, then you get a text, maybe like this morning when you're on Instagram, maybe you got a text saying someone's trying to change your password or something,
Mhm.
so that way, these are just, you want to take advantage of the technology. Well, here's all the wonderful security technology you can take advantage of too. So just implement it and do it.
Yeah, I had to cure my husband of that bad habit, which he kind of still tries to do, where he has this one password that he loves to use. And I use a system called Dashlane, and I've been using them for years. And my passwords are bonkers, but I can access all over my computer, my computer, my cell phone, everything has that platform on it.
Okay.
So I'm able to log into anything, anywhere, as long as I can log in with the one password into Dashlane. But yeah, it's unbelievable the amount of stuff that people do and not thinking of the risk involved, right? To
Yeah.
just kind of give it away that way. Very interesting. So that's what you would say to the owners. What would you say to the employees as far as what they should and shouldn't do with people's personal data? Because it's that always is the case, right? You have some owners of a company, they might be taking care of things, but if they're not telling their staff, hey, don't do this, don't do that, well, again, I guess that gets back to a policy, having a policy in place so that people know how to handle data. Then you're going to have a problem in your company anyway if you're not really teaching the right habits.
Yeah. The what I found over the years after implementing, maybe not hundreds or thousands, but a lot of enterprise security programs, is that you create an information handling procedure, and you connect it to that procedure. You make it very simple for front office people, right? So it's easy to remember, easy to follow, and then you connect that directly to the type of technology that you're using in the background, so that when you talk to your engineers and you say, okay, we're setting up a new database, it's going to have these security requirements going to be implemented, right?
Hmm.
Like encryption. And when it's being transferred, or when it's at rest, some systems allow you to actually encrypt the data while it's being processed. So SAP is, making a lot of money on that, because their data is encrypted all the time. So if you're talking about CRMs and you talk about, Salesforce, for instance,
Hmm.
um, that data is encrypted all the way, right? But it's probably stored in Germany. So
Interesting. And I guess for the EU and GDPR, that's not a problem, right? As long as, because at first when GDPR came out, I think they dictated where the servers could be.
yeah, and there's we had a privacy law in British Columbia. I was a privacy and security compliance officer there with the government. And the privacy law there forced EDS, which is a big company from Texas, as you know, to actually create a business, a Canadian business in British Columbia, and an office, so that
Oh,
they would be bound by Canadian law. Because again, wherever the data rests, it's a political jurisdiction that applies. Now, GDPR, you're right. When it first came out, there was all this hype and talk about how it was going to be rolled out for every European across the world, and that it would be applicable. But that's not true, because you can't impose the law of one country on another,
right.
unless you do this little trick that I've learned with the corporate lawyers, and that is you take the GDPR law and you turn it into a schedule and you attach it to your contract. And then all of a sudden now whoever signs that contract is now bound by GDPR rules. Maybe not by the UK, the European Union, but certainly bound by your company. And that is gives you some legal teeth. So if there's a problem, then you can go to court and win. Right?
Amazing. The amount of little things that you can think of. I was thinking one thing that always scared me when I was a matchmaker and I had staff, I always gave them a computer and I would say to them, please do not send anything from your Gmail account. Do not transfer information to your personal account. I want you to use only this computer and this email account. And it's just because they start downloading things, or you think you're saving money by not giving someone a computer. Now they're doing everything from home on their own computer. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, you can control that. So there's ways to control that. You could give them Chromebooks, right? So a Chromebook doesn't have any data storage on it. So the only way they can get storage is when you log onto the internet and then you connect to your office, right? And then it can see from your office. You probably remember, because I think you said you were in technology before. You probably remember we used to have thin clients. So the thin clients don't have any USB drives, they don't have any CD-ROMs, they don't have any flash drives, they don't have any infrared ports. Those are used by like federal law enforcement. So the FBI and RCMP, they use things like that in their office because they don't want their officers copying any of the data and taking it with them, right? So, and these things are booted up every day by the server, so there is no data stored locally. So there's ways to get around that. Certainly, I feel for you when it comes to giving somebody a laptop. You're trying to be a nice person and trying to help them. You're giving them a job. You're giving them equipment, right, to use for that job, and you hope that they respect it. And I bet you a lot of people do because they appreciate it. But there's always one or two that don't give a shit, and they'll just do whatever they want to do, and they will download stuff, and it could be malware. And that malware could infect that computer and steal that data. And then who's to blame?
Wow. Okay. So that's a good one to know for all you business owners. Go get those Chromebooks. I think I bought one of those for my husband because he cannot be trusted with technology.
Poor guy.
I was in the UK, and when I came home, he apparently had a problem with his laptop. He made a phone call, found some 800 number on the internet, and those people opened up a PayPal account and attached it to his bank account.
Oh my God.
Because he's like an 85-year-old man when it comes to technology, or I shouldn't even say
Wow.
that, maybe 90. So usually if there's a problem with any technology, I handle it. He's very handy with everything else, but not technology.
Yeah.
So yeah, and people just give away information. They'll answer questions even on a call. Like, I'm so paranoid about everything that if you call me and ask me any questions and you're calling from the government or somewhere else, I'm like, give me a number. I got to call you back. Whatever. I'm just so paranoid. We're in this
Yeah.
crazy cybersecurity world where it's all about getting your data and, doing something with it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Information is currency. I mean, again, Equifax has proven that because they
Mhm.
make, I think, like, I don't know, $900 million a year on our credit information, right, that they collect and maintain, but they sell it to other people and they use it for all kinds of stuff, right? And we don't know anything about that until there was a breach. And then we found out, right? The 145 million Americans
Oh my God.
were impacted. That's huge, right? And you think like identity theft is not a joke, right? It's very serious. I remember a story about a girl down in the U.S. And she was 16 and she was just finishing, high school, making plans for her future. And she went to the bank. She was going to try and get a student loan so she could go to university, right? And she went to the bank and they said, Yeah, we'll give you a loan as soon as you pay back the other 300,000 that you borrowed from us.
God.
Somebody had stolen her social security number and her birth date. And because the laws are pretty slack in the US, to be honest with you, someone just went into a bank and set up a credit, and then they bought a house, and then they sold it the next day. And the money was gone, it was laundered. Bye bye. And then she was left with the debt for I don't know how many years. And, how do you prove it's not you? Right. So that's the other side of the coin, unfortunately, because the bank wants their money and they want you to prove that it wasn't you who did that. And if you don't, then, you're in trouble. So, yeah. And it's going to get worse, unfortunately. And I'm not trying not to be a fear monger here, but, I've seen AI, I've seen the cloning, and we've seen it also in the Senate, right? One of the senators actually cloned himself and videotaped it and showed it to the other Congress people and said, "Here's a message from me." And he showed them the message. It looked just like him, sounded just like him, but he
Mm-hmm.
was saying things that were out of color and were not his style, right? And all of a sudden, he stopped the video and he said, "That's a clone,"
Wow.
right? Yeah, it looks just like me. All they need to do is they need to capture some audio of you talking, like these podcasts, and then some video as well to check your mannerisms and how you hold your head and how you touch your hair and stuff like that. And that can all be recorded and put into the computer and create a clone of you, right?
Wow.
And then it's just a matter of what do we do with it, right? So yeah.
I don't know if you know this off the top of your head. I mean, we're not trying to give any legal advice or anything, but what are the ramifications of someone using AI to clone a famous person saying something favorable about their company? I'm just curious. Is that something that is legal or is that something that
No, no.
it's not?
We've seen some cases in Hollywood, California already, where some people have said, "You use my voice, right?
Mm.
That's my identity. You can't use that." And they use cloning technology to use the voice to make some commercial or something. And yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't think it was Taylor Swift. It might have been, but it was somebody who was important. Maybe it's Beyonce. I don't know. Somebody who was really very famous and worth a lot of money.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's already happened.
And so the person who did that had a problem? Is that
Oh
what you're
yeah. Yeah, the case was successful. I mean, the judge agreed that is their identity. Like there's only one of you, Arlene, in the world. There's only one of me, right?
Well,
So,
yeah, there's a matchmaking company, and there are people that I know that are, good people, nothing wrong with them, but they cloned a billionaire and put a video out there, and I saw that and I was like, whoa, I don't know if that's a good idea. So if you're listening, which you might be, please take that down because essentially they have this billionaire saying, hey, all my billionaire friends are using this company, you should be using like, oh my gosh. And then in the caption, it has something that says, oh, I'm having so much fun with this AI cloning software, but you're putting this message out there. If somebody's not reading that caption, they're believing that they're seeing this well-known billionaire saying something about your business. That's just not kosher. I didn't think it was when I saw it, but you're confirming that that's definitely not a good idea.
yeah, well, we get back to the privacy law, right? So the reason why you collect the data and you use the data has to be succinct. So if you collected his data to help him find a match, that's not making a video. That's a different thing. And you are very exposed to a liability of being sued for
Well,
sure.
no, it wasn't collecting data. It was just they just decided, oh, we're going to do a commercial for our company using this billionaire's voice and image, and I thought I was watching him, and I was like, whoa, that's cool. And then I read the caption, I was like, oh, that's not cool, because I
Oh
thought
yeah,
it was him actually saying you should use this company. They're great.
yeah.
Um,
I guess the point I was trying to make, Arlene, was that if when you collect the data, if you collect it to help them find a match, okay, that's one to one. So that's the reason why you collected it. That's what you're using it for. That's the purpose and the objective. But if you make a secondary purpose, and that is to make a video with that data,
mhm.
that's not why he gave it to you. Okay, so you need to have another agreement with him that says, okay, you can use my voice and my image to make your video. And if you don't do that, like we do it all the time with movies. I don't know if you've ever been an extra or maybe a star in a movie somewhere, but you have to sign a release document, right?
Yeah.
That's the release. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, this is a married guy who's just a billionaire saying, hey, go use this company. All my billionaire friends are going there. But if I'm sure he would get pissed if he saw that. But anyway, neither
Yeah.
here nor there. I'm curious what your thoughts are on WhatsApp. I always liked that app before it was purchased by Meta because it's highly encrypted. However, what happens when you create a group and now you have a bunch of matchmakers in there sharing data, including people that are not US people, which there's some countries that have restrictions about sending data across borders, if you will.
Ah, good one. Yes. Good one.
So,
Yeah.
what would you say to these matchmakers about what they're, whether or not this is the right thing to be doing?
Well, privacy law is one thing, and Meta, I'm not sure about that guy. So I think he would do anything to make money and try and get as rich as Elon Musk. I'm sure he would. And the same with that other guy that runs OpenAI. Oh my, I was watching some of his videos, pretty scary. Um, and they're storing their data probably in China. So you can take it from there. It's not safe. It's not a good idea. I mean, try to use some secure technology, like you think of Signal, right? I'm not sure exactly, so I'm not endorsing anything because I haven't investigated it, but Signal is encrypted and it's owned by Elon Musk. So Elon Musk is in the US, so if something goes wrong, you can find him and put him in jail. Um,
Well, he's the one who was collecting all that, voter data not that long ago. So who knows what's going to happen with all of that? Oh, yeah, yeah. But also Proton, right? Isn't that an encrypted email system?
Another good one, yeah, that's from Switzerland. So yeah, my youngest son actually, he's after me to set up a Proton account. He says, "Yeah, we want to store our data in Switzerland because they have laws there, right, to protect information." So yeah, that's another good one. Yeah.
So in other
Again,
words, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. But not endorsing it, but I'm just saying that yeah, it seems like the logic and the architecture and I guess the business mission seems to be good. So it seems reasonable, but I would investigate a little bit more just to check to see if there's shares being sold and who owns the shares.
Hmm. What about storing client files in your Gmail or personal Google Drive folders as opposed to the the Google Workspace, which is more of a business technology? And is there even a difference between the two?
Yeah, I don't think Google, like I said, Google was just hacked. They probably get hacked all the time because they're so big, and the Chinese and the Russians see them as a big target.
Hmm.
Um, Probably not good. If you're going to store data somewhere, you need to make sure that it's secure. Like you said, maybe Proton is a better bet because at least the Swiss, they have rules about information and they have to follow the GDPR, no doubt. So it might be safer than Google. I don't know where Google is. I heard they're going to build a data center and put it in the bottom of the ocean. So maybe the fish will get after your data. I don't know. Aliens will get after it. I don't know.
So in other words, all of us who have these Google environments for business, is there no way to add protection to the actual business environment so that, you know,
Encrypted.
so it's encrypted? Yeah. Because I thought
Encrypt
there
your
were
data.
add-ons.
Say what?
I thought there were add-ons for Google to make them more to make Google more secure if you have, a Google Workspace, a business account with Google.
Yeah, you will, but there's still engineers that have access to that, and you don't know where the engineers are. You don't know where the data is stored again. It could be anywhere around the planet. Um, but if you encrypt your data before it leaves your desktop, you could park it out there and nobody could hack it until quantum encryption comes along, quantum computing, that's what everyone's worried about. In 4 years, all the governments are scrambling right now, right, to do inventories of all the encryption keys that they have, because when quantum computing comes along and quantum encryption, it can crack all encryption keys, crack them all. So what's going on right now is you see countries like China, India, Russia, North Korea. They're hoovering up data off the internet, off the dark web, pardon me, off the dark web, and they're just storing it, right? Because they know in 4 years' time, when quantum encryption comes along, they'll be able to decrypt it and find out what it's all about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me, for those who are listening, what exactly is quantum encryption and quantum computing?
Yeah, well, I'm not a physicist. Sorry, but basically, it's like it's more powerful than a supercomputer. It's more powerful than any computer that we've ever seen before because this computer, it's right now it's being used like Google actually has their own. Several companies do. Canada has D-Wave. Several countries have their own supercomputers, their own quantum computers. They're only being used by researchers right now, so they're not really out there, but they are there and they are working and they're being used to solve lots of different problems. It's so powerful that it's actually been able to identify that we have parallel universes, and there could be some more customers out there for you, Arlene, that you haven't met yet. I don't know. In the parallel universe, uh,
Oh,
yeah,
goodness.
and it solved lots of different problems that we thought were never going to be solved. But the big thing is it can crack encryption. So encryption keys we used to use in the past, like AES and RSA and all of those ones, they used to tell us, oh yeah, they can't be cracked unless you have 1 million computers and they work for 1,000 years and you can do all that. Well, a quantum computer can crack it in 5 minutes. so
Oh my gosh.
so there's nowhere you can hide. Um, yeah.
Sounds like we're going to have to go back to paper, like the original matchmakers back in the day. They used to have these little rolling things with their files with people's information in there, and they'd pull out, in alphabetical order. I mean, I don't know.
You need a little rack space in your office and put some servers in the back there. Put a sign on it, do not touch husband.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh. What a crazy time we're living in. I mean, it's exciting, but it's
Oh
scary
yeah.
at the same time because you just don't know what we're losing control of with AI, especially, and everything else that's going on.
We got to jump on the surfboard and hit the waves because, you know, this is huge. This is like so massive. Like in your business, I think when we were talking earlier, we were talking about data enrichment, right? So imagine like when you're doing background checks or when you're, checking out possible potential matches and stuff, the data enrichment power of the AI is going to make it so much better. Like you're going to have way better matches, right? Because of AI. So you can't really just ignore it or hide from it. You got to embrace it and just, do the best you can to protect your data.
Yeah. Wow. So there's just a lot to unpack. And of course, we didn't even get too much into it, but just want to mention a lot of times business owners, and really this whole conversation is something that everybody should be listening to because it affects everyone who owns a business, especially these days. Most people are working from home. And let's just say you hire a VA or someone who's a contractor, that just brings on a whole list of other potential problems too with your data. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like you're not sending them. I guess you can send them a Chromebook or something where they can't download information, but you
Now
have
you're
to.
talking.
Hmm?
Now you're talking.
Yeah, I tell you, it's a lot to consider. What can
Well,
we?
welcome to the company, Bill. Here's your Chromebook. Enjoy.
I'm just thinking, what final words can we leave people with to protect data? Like 3 things they can do right now to really minimize, right? At least minimize any of the problems that they can have with data.
Yeah, I think you need to come up with a strategy on what you want to do and what you're willing to be exposed to. You need to do a risk assessment because, you know, breach of security will cost you 130 $40 per month for like 5 years to monitor somebody's credit report. So it's gonna, no matter who you are, you're looking at $3 or $4 million, right? So it's not going to be cheap if you get breached. It's much better to sit down and say, okay, I have personal data. Now let's start at the beginning. Let's make sure we have the consents, the approvals, not just for the clients, but also for the employees that are handling the data. Let's make sure we have some kind of orientation plan, like an information handling procedure, and we have identified at least a minimum set of security controls. Like if you want to use AES 256, you want to make sure you use VPN when you're communicating between offices or between customers so that nobody can intercept your data. You want to make sure that you have HTTPS running, no HTTP, it can't be encrypted. And know where your data is. And then you might think about migrating it out of wherever it is to somewhere more safe. But certainly, if you can get some tools, like on the desktop, like you're a former techie, so you know about BitLocker. You can use BitLocker to encrypt the data on your laptop or tablet or desktop, whatever you're using. And once it's encrypted there, if you put it out and just store it or archive it on Google or any of those other places, then you can be sure that they won't be able to open it, at least not until for another 4 years, until they get a quantum decryption tool. And then you need a new plan. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's really, really good advice, Mark. And I mean, this has been such a powerful and necessary conversation. I think we need to have you on many times over as these things developed, because it reminds us that love and trust go hand in hand, and that protecting client data is an act of integrity as much as it is a compliance. So for anyone who'd like to learn more or connects with you professionally, what's the best way for them to reach you? Maybe somebody with a big company wants to bring you in and have you look at what they're doing and see if this is, I mean, I don't even know if you do that.
Oh, I help lots of people. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no problem. They can, if you don't want them to go directly through you, they can certainly contact me. I'm on LinkedIn. You can't miss me if you're on LinkedIn. If you go to Google and you type Mark E.S. Bernard, and the reason why I use my middle initials is because I had identity theft happen 2 or 3 times when I was just using Mark Bernard. And after that, I said, okay, I'm going to use my middle initials always now. So that helps. Yeah, so you can find me on the internet. You can certainly call me. Have an office set up in Austin, Texas, and I also have one here in Canada. So you can reach me at any of those offices if you like. And so, yeah.
I love it. And Mark and I are both like, home away from home is LinkedIn. That's like my favorite place to be. We always communicate on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But look, to everyone who's watching, whether you're the owner of a matchmaking company or part of the team that makes the magic happen, remember this. When you safeguard your client's data, you're also safeguarding their dignity, their story, and your reputation. And this wraps up the final episode of this season of the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast. I want to thank all of the incredible folks that have been on the show, including Mark. Thank you so much for all the information that you shared. Our growing community of professional matchmakers around the world are really appreciating. I'm getting a lot of great comments. I just want you all to subscribe, though. That's where you show the love, and it's free. And your commitment, to ethical practices, innovation, and collaboration continues to elevate our entire industry. For those of you who are watching, we'll be taking a short break, but we'll be back soon with fresh, innovative insights, new experts, and even bolder conversations to help you grow a compliant, profitable, and purposeful matchmaking business. And hopefully we'll have Mark on a few times over, because I think this is a development that's going to keep on happening over time.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, stay ethical, stay inspired, and remember, protect your clients, protect your brand, and keep those love stories safe. I'm Arlene Washburn, your ethical matchmaking advocate and host of the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast, sponsored by the Love Pro Mastermind Academy, where we train and certify aspiring and experienced matchmakers to build thriving businesses that make love happen the right way. Thank you.